Hello and welcome to Reporters, the best from France 24's correspondents from around the world. Pakistan's conflict with Taliban militants is always in the news, but what's never reported is the persecution of ethnic minorities there. Members of the Ahmadi community say that they are Muslim, but their exact beliefs make them a target. Muslims, particularly fundamentalists, say that they want to wipe them out. The state's accused of standing by and letting this persecution go on. France 24's Cédric Moll-Laurençon's been to the heart of the Ahmadi community in Punjab. Cédric will be speaking of that after his special report.
The snipers keep watch from the minaret as the faithful are called to prayer. From every window and from every street corner, Lahore's Darul Zikr mosque is closely guarded. More than 1,000 people are expected to attend prayer, and many have come early to get through security. Nothing is left to chance.
I'm searching for any unwanted thing that could be a weapon, an unidentified person, or anything which can harm other people.
Inside the mosque, the searches continue. Armed guards are everywhere, even in the prayer hall itself. No fewer than 6 of them watch over the imam.
The angels have always protected the Prophet's disciples like guards. We should take them as our example. Keeping ourselves safe is a sacred task entrusted to us by the Prophet Muhammad.
The prayer, the mosque, the imam, all are emblems of Islam. And yet here in Pakistan, these men are not considered true Muslims. They are the Ahmadi. They believe in a Messiah born in the 19th century and preach non-violence. But many have paid for these beliefs with their lives. In May of this year, in the middle of Friday prayers, 6 Islamist assailants stormed the Darul Zikr mosque. Their killing spree lasted for 2 hours. It left nearly 100 worshippers dead. These pictures were filmed by a man using his mobile phone as he hid under a heap of dead bodies.
It was here.
Muhammad survived by hiding under these stairs. Many others were not so lucky.
Look, these are the shoes of the people who were killed that day. I'll never forget what happened here. I have nightmares about it. At night I see the bodies, the faces. I just don't know why it happened.
The Lahore massacre has come to symbolize the persecution of the Ahmadi in Pakistan. One particular group of religious radicals has vowed to eradicate them, the Khatm-e-Nabuwat. They stage protests against the Ahmadi on a regular basis. This propaganda video was shot a few months before the attack on the Lahore mosque. The words of the Khatm-e-Nabuwat leader, an eerie foreshadowing of events to come.
We will continue our fight until the Ahmadi scourge is eliminated. We will shout it loud and clear so that the whole country hears us. And if anyone wants to stop us from carrying out our sacred mission, then they had better remember that man lives but once and dies but once.
For their safety, many Ahmadi have moved to this place, Chenab Nagar. Over the last 40 years, the city has become something of a promised land for them within Pakistan. 99% of Chenab Nagar's 60,000 inhabitants are Ahmadi. It's a closed community, wary of strangers. But Mubashir Uddin says the city hasn't always had such a siege mentality.
How much is it?
150 rupees.
Okay, here you go.
A carpenter by trade, Mubashir took refuge here 40 years ago when his father died. Since then, he hasn't left this Ahmadi stronghold.
Here we generally feel safe, free, not like in the rest of the country. We live the way we want to, we pray how we want to. But since the attack in Lahore, things have been different, even here. People are afraid. When we go out, we think there's a chance we might not come back alive.
Chenab Nagar may live in constant fear of attack, but Ahmadi continue to flood here from across Pakistan. Here, they're free to practice their religion. In Mubashir's workshop, workers display a photo of their Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, but they insist they're as Muslim as anyone else in Pakistan.
Salam alaikum. Hello everyone, how's it going?
Under the Pakistani constitution, Ahmadi are forbidden from identifying themselves as Muslim in any way. Simply saying hello could land Mubashir in prison.
If I say salam alaikum to a Muslim, it's considered blasphemy and the police could arrest me.
In Pakistan, if we say we're Muslim, anyone can file a complaint against us, and we could get 6 or 7 years in jail.
There's no getting around the anti-blasphemy laws, as the Ahmadis' religious denomination appears on all their papers. Authorities have even tried to press charges against the entire population of Chenab Nagar.
You'd almost think it was a joke. How can you file charges against 60,000 people all at once? It's just not possible.
If they want to put us all in prison, they'll have to build a bigger one, because ours is too small.
Mubashir and his workers may joke about it, but the government's message is clear. Chenab Nagar must not remain a safe haven for the Ahmadi.
The anti-Ahmadi fundamentalists live at the bottom of this street. A few hundred of them. They come out to provoke us fairly regularly. They chant slogans against the Ahmadi. When that happens, we have to hide in our homes.
Mubashir never ventures to the end of his road. In the city of the Ahmadi, the enemy lurks within. In Chenab Nagar, only one mosque is allowed to issue the call to prayer. It's the mosque of Khatme Nabuwat, the radical anti-Ahmadi movement. Today, a distinguished guest is visiting. It's Abdul Latif Chima, the man we earlier heard at a demonstration calling for the murder of Ahmadi. In front of a Western camera, Chima's tone is slightly different. But the message remains the same.
Dr. Iqbal, Pakistan's greatest poet, said that the Ahmadi were traitors to our nation, traitors of Islam, and that they must be eliminated. And we believe what Dr. Iqbal said.
The mosque is also home to a madrasa, an Islamic school headed by Mullah Mughira. In his class, 100 or so children learn the Quran by heart. They all come from poor families. Most of the pupils are more or less illiterate.
Hurry up. Come on, find your places.
This is where the children will grow up, schooled and raised in hatred for the Ahmadi community.
We teach them that the Ahmadi have a false prophet, that they want people to believe they're Muslims, but that it's untrue. And above all, they should never pray with them.
The students echo his words.
The Ahmadis are human beings, but they're against us, and I'm against their beliefs. On Judgment Day, the whole world will die, and God will send the good Muslims like us to heaven. Ahmadi will go to hell.
This radical ideology is preached throughout Pakistan. For the Ahmadi, it doesn't bode well. Mubashir knows this better than anyone. 2 days ago, the carpenter took in his sister and nephew, who had to flee their village.
How are you feeling today? Any better?
A bit, but the scar still hurts.
Mansour was stabbed while trying to protect his father from an attack by a religious extremist, but in vain.
We were asleep, and I was woken by a noise. There, next to me, was a man stabbing my husband. I called my son. He jumped on the man, but he got hurt too, and the man ran off. When the police arrested the murderer, he shouted that he wanted to kill more Ahmadis, so he'd be sure of going to heaven.
This all makes me so sad. I'm angry too, but what can we do? Nobody does anything to help us. Only God can save us.
In the cemetery of Chenab Nagar, dozens of new graves are testimony to the oppression of the Ahmadi. The victims of the Lahore massacre have been laid to rest here. For the community, the graves are an open wound.
Here it is, my brother-in-law's tomb. We buried him here with the victims of the Lahore attack because he was killed just a few days later. When I see this, I feel like all of humanity itself is dead. God will never forgive this crime. But I still feel hopeful that the violence will end someday. The mullahs will keep on fighting us, and the government will continue to allow it. But eventually God will help us stop it all.
The cemetery in Chenab Nagar holds the graves of Ahmadi killed by Islamists, men and women murdered for the crime of calling themselves Muslim. But here in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, they're banned from Muslim burial grounds. The persecution of the Ahmadi continues, even in death.
Our reporter Cedric Moll-Lawrenson is here in the studio. Cedric, we saw the serious nature of the facts in your report there. How long have the Ahmadi been persecuted in this way?
When Pakistan was created, established in 1947, Ahmadis were not persecuted. They were regarded as full-fledged Muslims. And in 1974, under the pressure of extremist religious movements, the constitution has been changed. Ahmadis have been ranked among the religious minorities. What the fundamentalist groups are saying is that Ahmadis are questioning one of the basic values of Islam, namely Prophet Muhammad being the last of the prophets. The Ahmadis say something different, but the religious Islamic movements are more and more influent. The attacks are numerous, and the state is standing by.
State in a moment. In terms of religious tolerance, Pakistan isn't well known for that worldwide. There must be other religious groups who suffer a similar plight.
In theory, even if Pakistan is an Islamic republic, the religious minorities have the freedom of worship, and the white band on the flag represents the minorities. But in reality, most of the religious minorities are persecuted, and those attacks against minorities have been increased in the past month. Shiites, representing 20% of the population, were victims of very spectacular and bloody attacks. Same thing for the Sufi, which is a mystical branch of Islam, and for the time being, a Christian woman, Kristen Bibi, was condemned to death some weeks ago for blasphemy because she has violated the laws on blasphemy. She's said to have said things against Prophet Muhammad. She's being jailed. Her trial will be held in several days, but she is at risk of death.
When we report about Pakistan and the Taliban, the question who actually is in charge often comes up. What I think you're saying here is that the state is so weak that on that international scale they can be judged in some way, but even on this community level, it's failing.
It is a failure, a total failure. In fact, traditionally, the Taliban, the activists were attacking the security forces, but they became aware that the attacks against minority religious groups were more efficient to destabilize the Pakistani state. In the past months, every time there was an attack against a minority, either the Shiite processions, the Sufi temples, the Ahmadi worship places, the reaction of the population were violent. People attacked the police forces, the military, there were some riots in the streets. In fact, by attacking religion, we are touching the core of Pakistan, the sectarian